Alright, so in this video I'm going to be breaking down the track Fear by Boris Brejcha. If you haven't heard the song before, I highly recommend listening to it. It's a great example of, first of all, a song that sounds unique. A song that sounds punchy, groovy, and very interesting throughout the whole experience of listening to the song. I can't play it for you in this video, but you can easily just go listen to it if you haven't already, or if you're not familiar with it. Alright, so just diving straight in, this is what my recreation sounds like. Yeah, so it's literally the very first couple seconds of the song, and yeah, I'm just gonna break it down to you. I always find that it's such a good exercise to find a song that you really like and that you're quite familiar with. Take it into your DAW. I'm using Ableton. Take it into the DAW that you're working in and just break it down. Take a little section of it and just work at building your own version of it from scratch. I find that whenever I do that, I learn quite a lot, and it's always very informative. So starting off, we have a simple kick drum. I'm at 125 beats per minute. Boris's music is always at 125 beats per minute, and I think he does that because A, he likes the tempo, but B, when he's DJing live, I imagine he doesn't want to keep adjusting the tempo of each song. He just wants to bring it in, know exactly that it's going to work with what he's playing currently, and yeah, it's just seamless in that regard. So yeah, we just have a simple kick drum. I have added in this little reverse. Can barely hear it, but it just helps to introduce the kick drum instead of it being so sharp and jarring at the beginning. Yeah, so that's basically the kick drum. Nothing really going on, except I have tried to tame a lot of the mids and the high frequencies without getting rid of that click, because yeah, his kick drum's always very punchy, and then there is a click present in all his kicks. So that's my kick drum. Here we have the main meat and potatoes of the song, which is the bass line. And with the kick drum, yeah, very cool. I broke it down into 3 sections, 1, 2, and 3. The first part is this. Yeah, very nice, subby, low pass, sound. And he does this a lot, so I'm using Serum. It's my go-to VST for these kind of things, and most things in general. He likes to use squares and saws in his bass lines, especially a square wave an octave below the saw. And without the filter, this might be quite jarring. Without the filter, you can hear how very dense those frequencies are, because you have the harmonics from the square wave, then you have the harmonics from the saw wave, and they just really fill out the frequency spectrum when played at the same time, and the saw wave above the square wave. I've added 2 voices of unison to the saw wave, and I've detuned them slightly. You can kind of get away with this because the saw wave is an octave above the square wave, so you do keep your kept sub-frequencies and lower mids in check while still adding a bit of stereo interest, but you always have to check for mono compatibility. Yeah, so that's basically the sound. What else have I done to it? I've done a little bit of saturation in Satin, Fab Filter Satin. Also, an important part is that this release time here, without it, it just kind of stops dead, but with it, there's a little bit of tail, and I think that's necessary to have to have release on your bass lines, because if not, then the sound of, a sound in the sub frequency range stopping dead still, that sounds a bit unnatural. But with a bit of release, it sounds like, I don't know, it sounds like a bass guitar being played, or some other bass instrument, because I think we're used to the sound of sub frequencies carrying on a little bit. If you stand in a room and you play you play a song on decent speakers or a good system, you're going to hear the room react to the notes in the bass, and the room will shake a bit. Even after that note has stopped playing, the room will keep on shaking a bit, and it will mean that that low frequency will carry on a bit even after it's essentially finished. Cool, so that's the first sound. Just lastly, I did automate the frequency, the filter frequency, using Volcano, also from Fab Filter. And I added a bit of parallel compression, just to really squash it. And also LFO tool, just a sidechain from the kick drum. Cool. Next sound is this Pluck. Now, I wasn't really happy with where I got it. In his version, you can hear the filter closing on the highs. This one, you can't. I can't really hear it. I've tried lots of different ways, but yeah, there's something I'm not quite doing that he does. But I'm in the ballpark, so that's all that matters for this. So I have two instances. I think the second one is just making it a bit fatter. It's basically the same sound design. So like in the first sound, we've got a square wave and a saw wave. Again, an octave down, an octave up, but I'm adding in a sub oscillator. And yeah, I'm adding in some voices of unison on both these wavetables and detuning them slightly. And the main difference between this and the first sound is that the filter is closing to create a pluck. Like that. Very easy to set up in Serum. And then I'm also doing some distortion. And quite importantly, this multi-band compressor without it. And with it. So yeah, it just makes it more aggressive sounding, especially with the distortion before it. And then one more filter on top, just to tame that that multi-band compressor. Really, no more processing other than a bit of Saturn. I haven't even EQ'd the sound. And yeah, some LFO tool. And then I did duplicate it. Just made it literally the same patch, but now the square wave is in mono. No processing, same pluck. But I did boost a bit of 1K here on this sound. And together. Yeah. in the ballpark, not 100% how it sounds, but yeah, it's not 100% how it sounds, but at the end of the day, you know, you're trying to create the blocks that he used to build his house, right? To build his song. So if you want it to be perfect and sound exactly like the way he makes his music sounds, you can do that. It takes a lot of time. But for me, I wanted to be, you know, try and get into the space where he was thinking, okay, cool, you have this sound at the beginning, then you have a pluck sound, and then you have this third sound. So if you can kind of get those sounds into the ballpark, you're already there, in my opinion, because everything can be done to taste. And you know, if another music producer or DJ was making this song, it would sound a bit different, you know. But yeah, this is just an exercise, so you will learn a lot of stuff by doing this. Cool. Moving on to the third sound of the bass. We have this. So what distinguishes this sound from the others is that we're using a very short envelope. It's only 51 milliseconds long on the coarse tuning of both of these oscillators. And that, this is bypass. Cool, so now it's bypassed. You don't have that same intention on the attack that you do with it on. Just creates a little, creates a click at the start of the sound that's very common. It's a very common sound that you hear a lot because, you know, this envelope on the coarse tuning, it creates very recognizable attack. And yeah, it's just a very, very cool way of adding more interest to the very beginning of your sound. So just using a couple of sine waves here. This is how it sounded before the pulse width modulation that I added. Otherwise it sounds a bit too bland. Then I've got a bit of tube distortion, another multiband compressor doing the same thing. Oh, but it's not on. Yeah, I don't think I wanted it on. And yeah, just another filter at the end. So this filter is just calming down the distortion as opposed to the distortion and the multiband compressor. Actually, I wasn't using it, so it can go away. And then a bit of OTT, Ableton stock standard, bit of drum bass, increasing the transient amount here because the sound is very, you know, punchy and in your face. And then a bit of satin as well. Nothing too special, just trying to drive these higher frequencies here, keeping the lows relatively intact. Cool. And yeah, all together. It's very cool. I like it a lot. I like his way of creating different bass sounds and arranging them in such a way that it's interesting, it grooves, and you don't even think, oh, why is he using 3 sounds? Like, no, like it makes sense to use 3 sounds in the instance of this song. Yeah, just for interest's sake. Then I have a snare here. Multiple layers, trying to cover all frequencies. We have that one, this one here, more of a clap sound on top, then a sort of live clap sound on top. And I think I've shifted these. Yeah. So you can see I've sort of shifted the first 2 off the grid a little bit. And yeah, I've just left these two as they are. You can always check the transients. There's one, there's one, there's one. And you try arrange them so that they spread slightly over time. Because if they're all hitting the same spot at the exact point in time, then it can sound a bit stale. But if you layer them slightly and spread them slightly, it sounds more natural, and you allow the transients of each sound, you allow them their own space to happen, as opposed to cramming them all at the same time. So yeah, nothing too special. Again, I try to get in the ballpark of what his snare sound sounded like, but you could spend hours doing that. At the end of the day, it's a snare. It's serving the purpose of, on the second and the fourth beat. Once you get into a region where it sounds good, you can take it any direction. There are multiple ways of creating an interesting snare sound. So to me, it's, it doesn't have to sound exactly like the way he makes it sound, but, getting into the ballpark is what's important. For a really cool snare sound, listen to the song Pookie. It's one of his older songs. That's a really cool snare sound. But in this one, it's just, more like something driving and, yeah, just something to serve the purpose of a snare drum, essentially. And then we have some hi-hats here. This could very easily be one hi-hat sound. But again, same thinking with the snare drum. I'm using lots of samples to just thicken out the frequency spectrum. Especially with this last one here. It's a patch I made in Serum, where we're just using the noise oscillator to essentially act as our hi-hat. So it's a very short envelope here. Then a bit of EQ to roll off the lows. Bit of delay. I think this is just adding a bit of stereo-ness. Yeah. And then a bit of reverb. But the really cool thing about Serum is that it's powerful, and you can set up macros, which is what I've done here. I've got macro 1 set up on the decay and release of our main envelope, as well as the reverb mix amount. So I can open it and close it, and essentially turn it from a closed hi-hat to an open hi-hat as I want to. So here's it completely closed. And yeah, you can open it up. That's really cool, especially to do on a loop like this. You can set the macro amount at different levels on each individual note. Yeah, that's really cool. Creates interest quite quickly. I use this preset a lot. And yeah, I recommend that you also make your own presets. Tailor them to what you want. I found I was lacking a hi-hat that I could automate and have it sound somewhat natural. So I thought Serum was the best bet for it. Artists like Stefan Bodson do that a lot. You'll hear that he uses noise a lot in his music, and especially with hi-hats, he just automates the decay or release as he builds up into a drop or breakdown, or if he just wants to, create a bit of tension. And that is basically the sound. I did add this in. The sound really comes in later down the road, but I thought I could just hear it in the background. Oh, there's also this. Because we have a lot of sounds here that are somewhat dry, I can hear in the background that he's got one or two simple things like this. Yeah, just to create a bit of, just place something in the space that's behind all of these sounds. Because the kick, the drums, the bass line, they're all quite dry. The snare drum has reverb on it, but everything is quite dry. There's nothing, filling out the rest of the space behind all of those sounds. So I can hear this just in the background, providing a bit of interest, and then I'm 90% sure I can hear this in the beginning. This sound does come in later though. So yeah, that is basically it. The recreation of, the main theme of this song. So that carries on for a while, and he automates it and changes it up as it goes, but that's basically it. Then there is this breakdown. That happens later on in the song. I worked on this for quite a while. Not entirely sure how he gets the exact sound. But again, we're using square waves and tall waves. Let me quickly show you the MIDI. So in the key of F, he likes to use this key a lot. Just going up the notes of the minor scale. But then there's this F sharp here, the Phrygian note. Yeah, just using octaves here too. Nothing too special. Yeah, and again, it's squares and saws, as I said. I have pitched another square wave 2 octaves down, just to create more sub energy. Again, we're running into a filter, MG low 18, followed by, again, distortion, multiband compression, another filter, and then a little bit of EQ just to tame it off. And I have set up macros here on the side. Macro 1 is on the filter cutoff, as you might imagine, and then again at this filter cutoff. So you can automate it like that. And I have done so here. You can see from open to closed. What else have I done? Macro 2 I had set up to these warp modes, but I decided not to use them. Yeah, macro 2 is doing nothing. And then what have I done? Just added a bit of sub, taken out a bit of those mids. I've added Decapitator and Saturn, even though I don't think it was necessary, because I don't think this is where I was wrong, or not quite accurate. I think it's within the sound itself that that is not accurate. Anyway, again, we're in the ballpark. This is the aim of this exercise, because we can see what he's doing. Well, we can see what he's doing with his MIDI notes, for example, and we can get an idea. Okay, he's got a sound that opens up, closes down. That is interesting. This is kind of how it sounds. You can take this into your own project and, make your own sound, because obviously you don't want it to sound exactly like his music. You want to put your own spin, your own flavor on it. Yeah. And then it goes into a drop. But cool. That's basically it. Cool. Yeah, that's always fun to do. I hope you liked it. And if you haven't heard Fear by Boris Brejcha, definitely go listen to it.